Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And welcome back. For our final segment this morning, we're going to be discussing breastfeeding. We have been joined on set by Robin Daly from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. We also have been joined by Denise Roberto from UNICEF. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
We've been joined virtually as well by Leanne Awe. She's a breastfeeding mom. Good morning, Leanne.
Good morning.
Quite an introduction, right, Leanne?
All right, so let's begin by discussing the importance of breastfeeding, both for mother and child. Let's begin with you, Robin.
Okay, as you all know, thank you for having us, first of all. And this week is the start of World Breastfeeding Week. When we look at the benefits for breastfeeding for the child, it's one of the best forms of nutrition. So it provides all the nutrients that a baby needs. And we are promoting also exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months. So during that time, the child is developing and growing, and the breast milk is the best, even though people might argue. It provides all the nutrients, like I mentioned. It helps the baby, prevents the baby from getting sick, provides a very good medium for the baby to have a very well-developed immune system, so less diarrhea, less respiratory infections. As we look at the mother as well, it helps for the mother to lose that baby fat very quickly. It helps to prevent cancer, and not to mention also that bonding that takes place when you're doing exclusive breastfeeding.
Yeah. Now, Denise, let's talk from your perspective. Breastfeeding, and it is World Breastfeeding Week officially this week, and it has been something that has been long advocated for. Funny enough, as soon as we introduced this topic, I think everyone said the long time slogan, breast is best, which is a campaign that was carried out a long time ago. But making inroads in breastfeeding is one that I know we're still working very hard towards, especially exclusive breastfeeding. Where are we today, and are we doing better?
Well, that's a good question. Thank you. Good morning to you and everyone. The theme for this year is promoting breastfeeding as shared responsibility. And that is UNICEF's mandate in just thinking about the rights of the child and mothers, for children particularly, for them to survive and thrive. Presently, with the MIX multiple indicator cluster survey from 2015, exclusive breastfeeding rate in Belize was at 33%. Now, when we looked at the previous MIX, I think it was in 2011, that percentage had raised from about 14%. And so there was a minimal gain there, yes, in terms of how Belize was doing in breastfeeding exclusively children under the age of 6 months, 33% at the moment. But that is so small. There's a lot more that we need to do. And this is part of the advocacy work of UNICEF in working with the Ministry of Health and Wellness and our partners to contribute in terms of not only advocacy but technical support, policies, as well as financial resources to do what it takes for Belize to raise its rates in exclusive breastfeeding.
I would assume that perhaps there has been some either research or studies conducted as to why there is, and I'll use this word loosely, there has been perhaps a reluctance on the part of mothers to breastfeed their children. Is there any one particular reason, or is there a number of reasons that have been unearthed, in a manner of speaking, from any kind of studies or research being done?
That is so interesting. Just this year, the reason being is that just this year, we've completed a terms of reference to do that study. We've engaged with the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Robin's looked at it, and so we are planning to do such a study.
Yeah.
There's not been any that I know of before in Belize, so this is going to be very timely for us to really look at the different cultures, the different locations, the different geographic areas to determine the knowledge, attitude, and practices of mothers towards breastfeeding. They're only anecdotes.
Yeah.
And maybe Robin would have some of those.
We've all heard them, right, Robin?
We've heard women always complain about some of the challenges that they may experience when breastfeeding. Also, the whole idea of having to go back to work after delivering. It's a very short time after the child is born, so many women might not continue breastfeeding because of not having the support at the workplace. And then also it does take time and it's consuming. I'm sure that Leanne will have something to contribute, being a breastfeeding mother and a working breastfeeding mother, but those are some of the challenges that we see women experiencing. So as Denise mentioned, the advocacy is important because we want to remove that belief that I don't have time or it's too hard and I'll just resort to using formula or the bottle feeding. So we want women to reconsider and to advocate more for us to be doing the exclusive breastfeeding, because the benefits far outweigh the potential effects of using formula.
Let's hear from Leanne then. Let's hear your personal experience, why you chose to exclusively breastfeed your new baby.
I exclusively breastfed all 3 of my children from birth to 6 months. And during that time, they didn't even get water. The breast milk has everything my baby needs. And at the beginning of a feeding, the foremilk is very watery. And towards the end of a feeding, the hind milk in the breast milk is where the fat content is located that keeps the baby satisfied. And so many women do not understand how breastfeeding works, the supply and demand. Many women give up very, very easily. And I've always been an advocate for breastfeeding. My son is currently 1 year and 8 months, and he's still on the breast. I breastfeed him before going to work. If I'm home for lunch, he gets a feeding there, and as I enter the door from work, he's very, very excited, and it's a very special time that we bond. I've been through it all, the challenges of having full breast while in a meeting and having leaking breast, the embarrassment of that, having to pump in a bathroom because there's no other place. I'm currently an education officer, and I've had times when we visited schools and I've had to ask the driver, please stop on the highway and park at the side. I really desperately need to pump. I can't take it any longer. And before I got back to work, I expressed milk and I froze them. So I had quite a bit of supply before going back to work. This is aside from breastfeeding my son. And many women don't understand the wonders that the body can do. God created us wonderful beings in his image. And if we just understand that when you have, because personally I've had days when my supply was low. But there are many contributing factors. It can either be that I wasn't hydrated. It can mean that I didn't eat enough because my body burns calories to produce milk. It can mean that I'm stressed. There are a number of things. And so women give up rather easily. And I'm a pretty determined, stubborn person. And so if I have a goal in mind, I'm going to reach that goal. And I have noticed with my children, they're very healthy. My son is, as I mentioned, 1 year and 8 months. He's never had a cold. He is a strong little boy, and it's not that there is shame or blame, or I'm not marginalizing women who have chosen to bottle feed, but for me and for my convictions and what I have done and what I thought was best, I would not change it. I definitely would not change breastfeeding my children. Not to mention it's cost effective.
Yeah. What's a can of formula right now?
It's almost like $20.
I was
It
saying,
depends.
and if you add
Yeah.
the cereal,
Yeah.
sometimes it's about nearly $30 you're spending, and it goes very fast.
Costly.
and you know, the breast milk is free, but beyond the cost effectiveness and the bonding, there's just so much research that shows that this is really the best thing that you can give your child. But I think Leanne outlined quite a few of the deterrents. You know, you go back to work, it's difficult. It may not be a conducive environment for you to pump. It can be difficult.
The thing is, Marlene, if we look at life from the vantage point of only doing things that are convenient, how many things would we not do?
True. That is very true.
This is priority for me, so I always found a way to get it done. And it's honestly liquid gold. I read an article that said if a baby has a cold or if he or she is sick, the breast picks up on the virus when the baby suckles, and it immediately starts making antibodies that changes the breast milk. So when the baby suckles, the milk content that he or she is receiving is actually fighting against that sickness. So it's amazing.
You can be a great coach for other moms out there, because I love that you acknowledge that it doesn't come easily, but it's worth the challenge.
Yes. The idea is for mothers and fathers to really understand the benefits. Breastfeeding is considered even like the first vaccination, if you want to look at it that way, for the child.
Yeah.
It offers optimal nutrition, and it helps a child to grow and develop. The first 1,000 days in a child's life is critical, and breastfeeding plays an important role. I'd just like to say that fathers can also play a critical role in breastfeeding by just being supportive, by being there in the first few hours of life. That skin-to-skin contact is so important. The child being on the breast is important. But if a mother, for any particular reason, cannot do that because of coming out of a surgery or whatever, the father or the male or the other caregiver can put that child on the skin and have that bonding experience. So it's for the population to understand the benefits of breastfeeding and of that first contact.
Can I interject and ask a quick question here? You're mentioning that the skin-to-skin bond between father and child, is that limited to only like when the child is a newborn, or because I have a 2-year-old son, and I personally strongly believe that that kind of contact is still very much necessary beyond the phase where he was either breastfeeding or being bottle fed.
Yes.
Is there a particular time span for that, or is that's just part of the bonding process?
That's a part of the bonding process.
Yeah.
You know,
I could see Denise's happy eyes towards you when you said that.
You know that the EC, early childhood development, is coming out here, but the first 2 years of a child life is so critical, and 2 to 3 even. So between 1.5 and 2, the brain, the synapses are forming, the neurons, and so the contact helps to give the child a sense of love, comfort, protection. There's no time span on that.
I want to ask you a question. I don't know if the data has changed, but the MIX study a couple years back, when you looked into the exclusive breastfeeding rates, it was interesting when you differentiated exclusive breastfeeding for girls, for baby girls versus baby boys. And baby girls tend to be more exclusively breastfed than baby boys. Is that still the situation?
We are still working with the MIX data from 2015, as there's not been a present MIX so far. So
but it's interesting, right?
Yes.
Why are mothers more inclined to exclusively breastfeed and bond with their baby girls versus their baby boys?
And that's the analysis that part of the analysis that we would need to do and get into. Again, there are a whole lot of cultural beliefs and myths and differences.
Yeah.
And one that I hear so commonly is that the boy doesn't get enough or is not satisfied with the breast milk.
Yeah.
Oh, he wants more. But as Leanne, I see Leanne shaking
Yeah,
her head
I know,
there.
right?
So
It saddens me when I hear it because it really shows the gender stereotypes from birth that we have for boys.
Exactly.
You're shaking your head, Leanne?
Yes, because I too heard those things, and I have been told many things culturally from
everybody.
There are certain things that we hold on to, and we just believe it, and we don't research for ourselves. My son, I have two sons, and yes, they have a hearty appetite. They definitely needed more than what my daughter needed, but that's what causes the demand for my body to produce more milk. The more the breast is stimulated, the more milk will be made. And milk production is it's a very, what's the word? It's a very keen thing that the body does. For instance, whenever a baby would experience a growth spurt, there is increased appetite. The baby needs more fuel because so many things are happening. And so at that time, the baby sucks more milk is needed. However, it also means that there may be a point where the breast is dried and the baby needs more milk. And that's the part where a mother would easily just say, the baby is still hungry, let me just give him or her a bottle. And that's the saddest thing you can do, because it affects milk production. You have the baby keep on suckling, and it tells the brain the breast is dry, but there is still this demand for it. And so more milk production is made, and that's how it happens.
Yeah.
The less you feed your baby, the less the breast is stimulated, the less milk that will be produced. And so when you cut back on feedings, you're actually hurting your milk supply.
Yeah. So, and these are some of the great, I mean, she's already covering some of the challenges
we
here.
definitely have to hire Leanne.
I know, right?
We definitely will start going with us countrywide to help this promotion, Leanne, I'm sure, because you are speaking everything that I think we would use to try to encourage mothers in terms of staying and sticking to it. So, it's great.
And that's okay. So that's one of the things that people think it's not enough. So let's talk about that part first.
Okay, so Leanne mentioned a lot just now in terms of how do you continue to engage, you know, the child to continue sucking. But she also mentioned one important factor that we really want to start advocating for, and that's the workplace support. And I think that one is also a very, very big one in terms of trying to get the employers to appreciate the importance of breastfeeding so we could continue the support for it. The area, the time off that might be needed, or the extended lunch hour, whatever it may be, having more employers support women who are breastfeeding or who have that need to breastfeed, so they don't they don't stop actually and throwing off the whole the process that the child is going through.
What do you find the workplace to be? Is it still very much taboo for mothers to breastfeed at work, as much as it is in some places taboo for mothers to feed in public? I know that, for instance, in the United States, there was this major campaign where they were encouraging mothers. You had military moms, you have all these kinds of mothers who are being supported to do just that. What has it been like in Belize? Is there a change in culture and mindset where breastfeeding is concerned?
That's a good question, and that's some of the research I think we would want to look at as well. But from what I know, definitely we still have some stigmas or some taboos in terms of where you want to see a woman breastfeeding. So if you're in a restaurant and you see a woman breastfeeding her child, how would you feel about that being next to that person at that table? Or even if you would see a woman maybe in a grocery store somewhere at the corner trying to breastfeed, or maybe even on a bus. And that goes into our next promotion idea that we're going to be doing for this month. We will be doing a video to help to show awareness for some of these stigmas and to highlight that, so we could have that being aired and have people understand that it's okay for a woman to be breastfeeding her child anytime, anywhere, and that's her right, and that's the right of the child also. And we want to be able to erase some of that belief that people think the woman needs to go and hide or needs to go in a bathroom. There are certain ways that you can breastfeed your child in a respectful way, and it doesn't have to make other people feel very uncomfortable, but it's a right for a woman to be able to breastfeed, and also a right for that child for food. So those are things that we want to be able to showcase as one of our activities for this month.
And the workplace, I think, is one too that definitely needs work. I think you pointed out, Leanne, that you've had to pump in bathrooms, and I can never forget a breastfeeding mom saying to me, would you eat your food in a bathroom stall? And that's what you're asking parents to do when they have to pump in a bathroom stall. So, you know, it's a little bit of perspective that goes a long way. But even so, the data shows that if your employee exclusively breastfeeds their child, then their child will most likely have less sick days growing up. So it's a short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain.
And so that's the awareness that we all need to have. It's a shared responsibility from workplace, schools, families, and part of the advocacy that we're doing in terms of workplace is, yes, creating that space for the mother, a healthy space, a safe and clean space for a mother to pump. Maybe it's just pumping and putting up the milk. Refrigeration, or also breastfeeding, or taking the time necessary, an hour or so, to breastfeed. And there are many different ways as to how a policy could look. And that's part of the work that we are doing in looking at the family-friendly policies for early childhood development and for the optimal nutrition of children. One other advocacy piece is looking at the monitoring of the International Code of Marketing Substitutes for Breastfeeding. And Robin has been doing a lot of work as one of the focal points in the Ministry of Health in that area, where we just look at what is advertised out there. The private sector has a role to play as well in terms of promoting formulas or food or these things for a child less than 6 months. Between the ages of birth to 6 months, a child just needs the breast milk.
Not even water.
Not even water.
Not gripe water either.
Exactly.
Not good.
Yeah, I was going to say, and a seed.
Good luck telling the grandmas that, right?
But part of the success of our work is the Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative. Yes, in Belize, where we have the 7 public hospitals being certified as baby friendly and 2 polyclinics being certified as baby friendly. And I think that would be one other initiative for this month in certifying another polyclinic.
And there are also what they call lactation specialists or breastfeeding counselors, right?
I was just gonna highlight that part, because that's another way that we try to support women to do breastfeeding and to continue. The idea to breastfeed a child doesn't start when the baby is born. That idea starts while the woman is pregnant. So she decides during that time whether she will breastfeed. So going to the clinics, getting proper antenatal care is really how the support starts. So we have, like Denise mentioned, we do have all of our public hospitals and even our national hospital certified as baby friendly. So there are specialists there that can help women to teach them, to educate them on the benefits and also how they go about breastfeeding. And then we also have lactation counselors. I think You remember Miss Penny? She was one of our advocates and also a lactation counselor that has done a lot of work in Belize.
Yeah.
And we have nurses that have specialized also. So there was trainings done.
Yeah.
And there are many nurses in these facilities that can help and assist.
Yeah.
What we've started to do now, which was a work in progress, we have started to also train our community health workers to start to have them being educated on how they can assist the process, because many times what we notice, sometimes people might have challenges and they won't directly go back to the hospital or the clinic.
True.
They're already at home, they're in their community, so sometimes they want to call a neighbor, which could be a community worker, or they could have somebody maybe on phone that they could rely on. They could do a quick conference call on that and how they can get some tips. That's some things that we had to do.
Like proper
with the-
position and latching and
all of that. So there's
Yeah.
all of those techniques that they need to learn, and some of those things we had to put in place, especially with the pandemic ongoing, because there isn't much, there isn't a lot of one-on-one counseling that will take place at the clinic level. So we have to rely sometimes on people that can reach out from the community that can help the mother. And also we have these training sessions that we could educate women and other health professionals on how they can support breastfeeding.
Yeah.
One more thing, Ms. Denise mentioned about the international code, and that's a responsibility that we're asking also. That has been a very big challenge for us, getting the support from vendors or from suppliers or producers or companies that sell formula or sell breast milk substitutes, because that's a money-making venture for them. So I would like to take this time also to highlight one of our biggest supporters, which is Sandcastle from Bottom Dollar. Miss Aisha has been very helpful with us throughout all of our campaigns, and they advocate as well. So we want to have more support from our stores and producers in terms of helping us with this, because everybody has a responsibility to play, and we all must work together if we want to raise our breastfeeding rates and have healthier and more productive children, less sick, things like that.
And just before we close, though, it's important to put into a perspective that we are in a pandemic. And let's talk about the ground rules for breastfeeding moms or lactating moms. Should they get vaccinated? Do you stop breastfeeding? What's the rule there?
We are recommending, well, I shouldn't say we, the World Health Organization has given the go-ahead that breastfeeding moms and pregnant women can receive the vaccine. That's the first thing. So the second thing is that these women, even if a woman gets COVID, she can still breastfeed. So at no point in time should a woman stop breastfeeding unless she's physically unable to do so. And even with that in place, there is still the express, she can express milk still, and they can, a support system can be in place where the baby can still receive breast milk. But at no point we're encouraging a woman to stop breastfeeding.
That's how important it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And by exclusive, I think Leanne said it very early on, it's just the breast, nothing else.
Yes.
Just
No
the breast.
water, no nothing
Yes. Yes.
for 6 months.
For 6 months.
And they can continue onward to 2 years, but we're pushing it just for the exclusive 6 months.
Okay.
In closing, I want to also mention some of our activities that we're doing for this month. And we do have our educational sessions that will be taking place in the various health facilities. And those are supposed to be very helpful for women who are at that stage, pregnant, or those who are already breastfeeding. And we will be having a couple live shows where we'll be doing giveaways. One will be this week and one will be next week. We have 2 clinics pending for certification. So that's one in Toledo, San Antonio Polyclinic, and we also have San Narciso in Corozal pending certification for being baby friendly. And we also have, like I said, we're going to be working on an ad that we will be sharing as soon as we finish developing it. And we also do have our various support systems and trainings that will be taking place to support women who may be having challenges with breastfeeding.
Nice. Well, ladies, I think, it is very clear when you're talking about how you want to get your child started on the best foot possible, how important it is to exclusively breastfeed. We hope that expecting mothers and even new moms are convinced to do so, or those who've already decided that they'll stay on that path. Thank you for sharing your story, Leanne. And thank you,
Can I
Robin.
say one thing before I leave?
Sure.
I don't want to leave without thanking my current boss. He has been very, very supportive, Mr. Jamor Lopez. I have never had to express milk in the bathroom. That was somewhere else that I used to work. And the support does make a difference. So I just wanted to say thank you. And as well as the other employees at work who've been also very supportive in giving me my space and the time that I needed to pump milk. So,
All right.
and thanks for having
Wonderful.
me
Yeah.
to share my story.
I think you've been officially recruited as part of their education team,
Yes.
just so you know. Thank you to Denise for reminding us. And we definitely look forward to hearing the results of that CAP study to find out what people really are thinking about breastfeeding.
Thank you. Maybe we could get that done for next years.
Yeah, I would look forward to that. But with that, though, we're going to go ahead and take our final break. And when we come back, we'll have our wrap up. So stay tuned.
COVID Update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.